We need to open the meeting in order to comply with open meeting laws. So if you could just, Erica, I'm sorry, just hang on 2 seconds while we get the meeting officially.
I'm now opening the Sherborn Conservation Commission meeting of July 20th, 2023. I move to open the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and then we have a roll call vote. We have Michael Lesser, aye. Each announce yourself.
Kurt Stiegel, aye.
Steve Scrimshaw, aye.
Orniak, aye.
Okay, the meeting is now opened. Do we have any reviewing the agenda? I don't have any issues that are urgent to change the agenda with a 48-hour with that less than 48-hour notice. Does anybody have anything that's urgent that with? Okay, then we're staying with the agenda that we have now. I think that I would like to, even in the way it's been proposed, this discussion of a certificate of compliance would have occurred after this hearing. So I would like to open the hearing and that we would then finish our discussion later about a certificate of compliance. Since it's late at 7:31. Okay, notice is hereby given that the Sherborn Conservation Commission of the town of Sherborn will hold a virtual public hearing using Zoom technology at 7:20, now 7:32, on the 20th day of July 2023. This notice of intent hearing will be held pursuant to Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws as amended, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sherborn Wetlands Bylaw to consider a proposal by the applicant's representative, McIntyre Engineering and Septic Systems, for the replacement of a failed septic system within a wetland buffer zone at 73 Washington Street, map 7, lot 0/86A. This application is available for viewing at the Sherborn Conservation Office. All persons desiring to be heard will be given the opportunity to speak at this hearing. Okay. The hearing is now open and we can present.
Dan McIntyre representing the homeowners, Sharon and Joe Gustafson. The homeowners are in the process of selling their home at 73 Washington Street, and it failed a Title V inspection. We were retained to design a new septic system. Let me see. Share my screen here. Does everyone see a plan there?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the site plan for the septic replacement. Washington Street is up at the top of the screen. The building right here is a 3-bedroom home right here. And then we've got 2 driveway entrances coming off of Washington Street, and then a common driveway going over to number 75 Washington. The existing septic system is in the back behind the house is a cesspool underneath that common driveway section to 75 Washington Street. The well is in the front yard right here. And we had the wetlands delineated by Goddard Consulting. There's a significant wetland running all the way through the back of the property associated with a perennial stream, or an intermittent stream, I'm sorry, over on adjacent property, feeding this unnamed pond back here, which also has bordering wetlands along the banks. We did some soil testing with the Board of Health directly behind the house where the cesspool is and over in the side yard. We are proposing to put it in the side yard because the groundwater conditions and the soil conditions are much better than around the existing cesspool where that is, in terms of both types of soil and the depth to groundwater. The system itself will be outside the 50-foot buffer. So we will be doing some grading within the 50-foot buffer. The major impacts based on comments that we've heard to date is the tree clearing in this area. This area is previously disturbed. The understory is lawn and some bark mulch, but we are taking down, currently proposing to take down 6 trees, depending on how you count it. There's 5 freestanding trees, and then there's a large tree in the middle that has 6 trunks coming out of it. So it could be 6 trees, it could be 11 trees, depending on your point of view. We are proposing to mitigate that tree removal with some additional plantings. We're proposing to put in 7 tree species, not different species, but 7 trees and about 9 bushes to restore this area that we're going to be grading in here. So this will be a 4-to-1 slope from the septic system down into this buffer area. We're going to be putting in a couple of trees up in here, some red maple here, some understory bushes in here, and we plan to seed the entire area with a conservation mix with the intent of the natural buffer vegetation here to kind of grow back up that slope. Rather than have lawn here, we're going to kind of restore this into buffer plantings. It was getting kind of crowded in here for mitigation, so we did some other plantings down here. We're proposing 4 spruce trees along the lawn line over here. And what are these trees here? I think these are maybe the sweet pepper bushes down here to kind of create a border to this wetland in attempts to mitigate any future encroachment of the lawn toward the wetland. We can kind of create this border with this buffer zone vegetation. Based on a sidewalk, a question came up on why this area here. Is there another area that we would have less impacts? In terms of buffer zone, any other area we looked at where we tested over here or in front of this coop was also suggested, we're still going to be within the 50-foot buffer. Albeit the tree clearing would be less. There's 2 trees in here that would have to come down. There's 2 trees over here that would have to come down. But in terms of real buffer zone impacts, both of these areas have a higher groundwater and poorer soils. We couldn't even perk this, the groundwater table was so high. So both of those areas would result in a higher mound and a larger system, resulting in more earth disturbance in the buffer zone. And more importantly, from my perspective as the civil engineer, as we build down here, we get much closer to this open pond here as compared to the preferred location. So the preferred location gives us a much better soil-based treatment before it hits open water, where essentially all treatment would stop. So from an engineering technical perspective for the septic system, it's much better to be further away from the pond, and we can mitigate any impacts of the tree removal with the mitigation plantings. And I may point out that of the 6 trees that were taken down, 2 were quite nice that we saw out there. The other 4 are very tall fir trees that are, dead up to probably the top 10% of the trees. And the homeowners have experienced a lot of tree falls in this area. So what we're taking out is not the best. And I think what we're putting in is going to be an improvement of the entire situation. So with that, I think I could turn it over for your questions.
Okay, thank you. Do other people have questions? Joyce, Courtney, or?
So of the 11 trees, are you doing, we talked about 2-to-1, right? I don't, can you go over your tree count again? I mean, I don't see them. I only see 2 around the septic system. You're taking
Well,
out a whole bunch along the side there. Are you not
Right.
putting any back around the septic?
We are. Let me see if I can go and zoom into. We put together this sketch, which is a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
So when
You're putting
when
2 trees back.
we've got a red maple here at kind of the base of the slope. So we got 2 red maples. We got these service berries, which at mature height, they'll be in the 20-25 foot. So we're considering those would be trees. And if you look at the literature, they called understory trees. They don't grow to a great height, but they do serve as a good cover for understory. And then we've got a river birch here. So that's 5 trees right in this area here. And we're proposing another 4 trees along here. So we're looking at 9 trees. And then we're looking at another 9 shrubs. So we're looking at a total of 18 plantings. And when we were at the site walk, we discussed this kind of a mix between trees and shrubs as a mitigation. Because I think the shrubs help quite a bit in this area here to improve the understory.
I could see that. How would, yeah,
Okay. So it would be, if you're doing 11 trees and you're I'm just trying to, I apologize. It's been a long day. So if you're doing 11 trees, so that's 22 trees, or a combination of trees and shrubs. And for every tree, it would be 2 shrubs. So again, if you could just go over that again, how that you've got 1, 2, 3 trees up top. And you have 1, 2, 3.
We got 1, 2,
you have 6, 7,
3.
8. So you have 8 shrubs up top and 3 trees.
well,
So that's
giving 2 trees, 2 of the shrubs are really like a tree, so it's 5 and less shrubs.
We're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees. 3, a clump of inkberries and a clump of sweet pepper bush here. 3 each, so we've got 6 bushes. So in this area here, we've got 11 plantings. And then we've got an additional 1, 2, 3, 4 trees and 3 bushes. So we got an additional 7 plantings down here for a total of 8. And we're taking down,
okay.
again, it depends on your perspective. We're taking down 6 trees, which would be a mitigation of a 3 to 1. You know, if this tree that has 6 trunks coming out of it, is that a tree or is that 6 trees?
Sure.
I think we're looking for a little leeway on that, per se.
So one thing I think that jumps out at me is that, you know, you're removing canopy trees, and generally when we see canopy trees removed, we want to see canopy trees replaced. Service berries, especially if you're talking about Amelanchier canadensis, the Juneberry, Canada service berry, that's a very shrubby tree, and it's really not going to get very tall, and it's not going to provide the same shading functions. Don't get me wrong, I think you should plant it because it's just lovely and beneficial and the berries are delicious. But again, I think red maple is a great choice. And I do, you know, yeah, a lot of those trees seem to be in decline. I mean, part of it is, you know, that's the nature of those kinds of evergreen trees, is that they do lose the lower branches, but, you know, some of them do look to be in decline. And I would just say that white spruce is not native to Massachusetts. It's native further north of us, and it likes the cool mountain conditions, which is definitely not where Sherborn is right now. So my only concern is that's not really a recipe for success down there. So that's another consideration. I love the other shrub choices, the inkberry, the pepperbush. Those are great plants.
So to move this forward and maybe get a little bit more tree canopy, whether up at the top part there where you have the service berries, whether that, and some of the trees are in decline there and some are going to be gone, whether we can come to terms with adding a couple of red maples there as well, and then maybe changing the I don't know, I'm just putting out even to Courtney and Joyce and anybody else on the commission, whether adding another 2 trees up there, get the 13 trees plus about 9 shrubs, you get over 20 plantings. Whether plant a couple more trees up there, even though it might seem a little crowded, I'm trying to think, but you're already cutting down trees there. Whether that's a way in changing the species for the other spruce. There's a way to
Well,
move forward here.
We are, when we started out, we were cutting down quite a few more trees, and we modified our application to keep those up. So there are a couple, there's a large tree right here next to the garden. There's another large tree here. This double tree here is one that we all felt was a very nice tree and has a very large canopy in this area here. At the end of the day, we are trying to replace a septic system. This isn't just a buffer zone restoration project. So we got to be careful about the root systems of what we plant around the septic system, which is why we're trying to keep the trees themselves down at the bottom of the slope.
No, that makes sense. I'm not suggesting that. I agree with you that we need to keep it out of there.
I mean, I almost think you have a great planting there. And I wonder just, because yeah, I do struggle to see how many more trees you could put in that. I mean, full-size canopy trees. Red maples especially, because those roots are going to go real far looking for water. I wouldn't want to crowd the septic there. But again, we usually require, full-size canopy tree replacements for full-size canopy trees. But I would certainly encourage replacing some of those white spruces with maples instead, the red maples.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Hold on. Sure, Steve, go.
I agree canopy trees shouldn't probably go back in there, and white spruce aren't really probably the right tree either. But given that canopy trees are being removed, could we plant some canopy trees in the lawn and where some of the white spruce in that area, or I'm concerned a little bit about the chicken coop being 55 feet away from wetlands too. So is there any way that you could trade off a little bit? It's a question.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we can, but I do want to go back to, of the trees we're removing, there's really only 2 that are canopy trees. The other 4 are spruce trees, which is why we went with the 1-to-1 replication, why we put spruce trees down at the bottom. So if you don't consider those canopy trees, then the ones that we're taking down aren't canopy trees.
Oh, no, it's not that I don't consider white spruce a canopy tree. It is a canopy tree. It gets very tall. But I think, just by looking at the spruces on site that are in decline, you're not going to have success planting new white spruces. That I'm just recommending you change change them out for a different canopy tree, because these are not I don't think these are gonna grow into full-size canopy trees. I think they're gonna die before that.
Okay, just to follow up, I wanted to make a slightly different point than that. Is just that even whether canopy trees or not, you're cutting down forest in the wetland buffer, and mowed a lot of it within the 50-foot buffer. Could you plant some trees in lawn near the coop, chicken coop? Or just, can you trade off a little bit? That's the question I had. And I think the white spruce is a separate topic, and it's probably pretty clear on how you should proceed there, or probably find an alternate.
Well, I think that was the intent of this. Although it's not shown, and I apologize for that. There are two canopy trees right in this area here, as well as one right across the driveway. If we could have some leeway on the size of the trees, because we do have to be somewhat concerned about costs as well. Septic systems nowadays are costing a fortune. And you know, the mitigation plannings, although we're obligated to do it, we're happy to do it, but like to try to keep an eye on costs as well. So if we could have maybe some smaller red maples instead of 1.5-inch caliper, or other species that might be less expensive than red maples, I would be happy to do that.
I didn't realize red maples were expensive. I'm sorry. They're seeding all over my yard. Do you have any other
So
trees?
you were going to do 1.5-inch caliper though, so you can look at even, you know, Home Depot. They're not, you don't have to get them from someplace fancy.
Okay.
Yeah. And the question is, are you game to change in terms of moving this forward again? Just a correction, none of the trees are being cut are in the 50-foot, no alteration zone, just to be clear. For our notes.
Well, there's one.
There's one right on the edge.
Oh, yeah, right now I see it there. There's one there, right there.
I count it as within the 50. It's right on the edge.
I see it now. So are you willing to change the species for the white spruce?
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna,
I have a question here.
yeah,
As the guy footing the bill on this thing, I have an idea. Can I get an idea of what we're talking about here?
you mean in terms of,
One question, what's the Sherborn's requirement of tree replacement? Is it 1-to-1 or 2-to-1?
there is no absolute formula for any of that.
Okay,
It's basically, we tend to get at least 1-to-1 and try to go more, just
Okay.
because they're smaller trees. And we're trying to do our service to wetland protection. So there is no absolute formula. It's somewhat site-dependent, as we're seeing here. That it doesn't necessarily make sense to put many more trees possibly by the septic. And whereas looks like it makes sense to deal with something lower down where you have those spruce idea there. And that, so basically the idea of assuming that the cost is not that much different, that basically the 4 trees that you're looking at down below could be basically converted to red maples. And that would move us along. Is that something we can agree on? I guess it's part of a whole package of what else we're asking for here.
Well,
I think that's exactly right.
And whether with those trees there, with the with that, it would sort of be like, depends how much you include the service berries as an understory tree over there. Which you're saying is not really a tree. It's a shrub. We basically have 9 trees. We have 9 trees and about 11 shrubs or something like that. And then we have that whole area being replanted. What would be the management? I'll skip a little to the whole 4-to-1 slope and where all where the planting is and where you're going to do the mix the conservation mix. But that area would just be mowed once annually. Often we get into the landscape management plan for areas because that's in a lot of inner buffer there, as well as some actual
Yeah,
whether
during the first couple of years, we would recommend annual or perhaps even semi-annual mowing of that, just until we can get those bushes and trees established. Once the new plantings are fully established, I think we could let that conservation mix just go wild and be just like the rest of the buffer toward the wetlands.
yeah, that's certainly clearly a gain for us compared to what it is now in terms of I view
So
that.
my,
I was just gonna say, as part of doing that, that would hopefully entail moving that wetland marker that you have there to more towards where you have the inkberry.
Over by the river bush and river birch over in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over there, so that it's clear that that's a restoration area.
No, that makes sense.
so
Yeah, go on.
can I just bring up that we do kind of have tree guidance here? We have a tree policy that we use when people want to remove trees, you know, that are hazardous on their property. And this is kind of the general guidelines for what we've gone with. So what did I just do with it? So, I mean, we say the tree size is classified by the trunk diameter at 4.5 feet above ground, DBH. For each large tree removed, 12-inch DBH or larger, the owner shall plant one native canopy tree. A canopy tree is a type that, when mature, will have sufficient height, 40 feet or more, and crown width, 20 feet or more, to shade a large area. For each small tree removed, less than 12 DBH, the owner should plant one native tree. And then applicant may request substituting multiple native shrubs if the area will retain an extensive shade canopy or already contains native saplings that will quickly replace the removed tree.
You think we're not including those rough numbers where,
No, I'm just saying, we have guidelines for what we consider canopy tree and what the DBH of things is, just so we can make it clear what a one-to-one replacement would be.
right, there sort of seem to be meeting, depending on how many trees we're calling it, where if it's 11 trees there, and if it's several shrubs, it's a matter of how much is canopy versus not canopy, because
Service berries are not canopy trees.
I understand, but right, we have, there is still, if there's a ratio of 2 to 1, right, I guess the canopy trees cannot be substituted for by shrub. And the issue is what canopy trees, then what are you arguing for in terms of where we could fit? And so essentially, if you're saying that, I guess I was willing to be a little more, change it a little different, that the 11 trees, or whether it's 7 trees, I guess I'm stuck a little on how many trees there are that are canopy versus whether we have 6 canopy trees or so, and whether if the red maples, would you consider the red maples along the 4 down below?
Red maples and spruces, or should we change them to red maples? Those are all canopy trees.
If they're willing to put canopy trees down there, down where the white spruce is, and we already have the 2 up there, that gets 6 canopy trees. That sort of meets, I think, sort of the minimum, depending on how you define all the rest. And then they're getting, then they have a whole number of shrubs, 3, 6, 9, 11 shrubs, which could be the equivalent of 5 or 6 regular trees, which we don't really have here, but that maybe balances the fact that that one tree is multi-pronged. I don't think we're far off. I mean, that's the problem with the formula, is that we're not, and then we have the mitigation of the of getting that area renaturalized, where there's wood chips and other kind of lawn there. So I would say as a package,
Yeah,
I think we're sort of almost there, basically might be there. again, for where we put the wetland markers, but that it sort of goes in line with what you just said there, and it's just hard to define that one tree per se. But changing the white spruce to the red maples sort of gets me there personally. I don't know whether you want to ask for, I mean, we could ask for a little bit more change, but.
I think you've asked for quite a bit.
Oh, yes. That's part of our job.
Well, it's part of my job too.
I
as
understand
a
your job.
professional, I'm kind of responsible for protecting the wetlands too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what we proposed is really an improvement over existing conditions of what you have out there. Now, we've got some lawn in the buffer zone that we're gonna be removing and put in conservation mix. We're putting in a significant number of better trees than are out there now than the ones that are dead and dying. If you're not happy with the white spruce, we certainly can change that out as long as we have some eye on cost. Some ability to put in something, like you say, a Home Depot type tree.
Right.
Yeah, I think as long as it's, the size, the 1.5 that, and native, then you can pick whatever. You don't have to do red maple. You could do oak, or, there's a number of different things you can do.
Yeah.
You're not stuck to, and you're not even stuck to what you agreed to tonight. If you can't find it, you
Right.
just call and say, I can't get this. I can only get this.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you don't have to come. We'll just talk about it. That's all.
Well,
I think
that's
the
good to
idea
know
is
then.
to agree to the count, and
Yeah.
I guess, and it's also, you were concerned about clustering the red maples too closely up there around the septic, but you have them kind of close around where, if you put them where the white spruce is, you kind of have them close together. You can, we can spread those out. There's a lot of area there that those could be spread out throughout, so they don't have to be in a line there.
The intent of the spacing on the white spruce was intentionally close to create basically almost a hedge there to prevent encroachment of that lawn into the wetland buffer.
Well, can I ask you, I have to ask you one question that, well, not to go to, not to be, this is just a tentative ask. Part of that could take into account where you have the two lower white spruces of those four. There's that little access area to sort of a bulge. Is that a bulge of lawn? I can't remember. I didn't walk down there.
Yeah, there's a little lawn out there.
Dare I ask whether that, since that's in the inner buffer zone and so close to the wetland, I don't know what others feel. I'd let you get away with one less tree even or so to see if that would be left to go natural, since that's basically would be restoring inner buffer zone that's right next to wetlands. If that's something that would be considered, that would, I think, I don't know what other commissioners would think, but I think that would sort of give us actually some real wetland value, since it's so close to the wetlands.
Did I mention in my presentation that we're eliminating a cesspool in the buffer zone in the groundwater table?
Yeah, you could just say no. You could just say no. I just wanted to put it
No,
out.
I'll throw that out to the homeowners.
It's only because it's like that little bulge there, which goes right in
Yeah.
so close there, that I thought it might be.
So Joe and Shannon, they're talking about this lawn area here. There's kind of a narrow path through here, and then there's a lawn in the buffer here.
And what's considered in a buffer, which is valued. I don't know what other commissioners would think, but I would, I'd even trade off a tree or so for that.
Dan, is that lawn line located, or did you sketch it in?
Most of it was located by the surveyors. Some of this down here was sketched in by tape measurement.
Could I interrupt while we have a pause in the banter here. First of all, you have to forgive me. This is all, a way out of my league as far as, it's like talking to my software engineers. It's like, I don't know what you're all talking about, but and I understand the intent here and the spirit of it. If I could just say something that, we've been here 25 years, we've been good neighbors of Sherborn. We've taken our property and we've kept it in as good a shape as we got it, if not better. And I think you noticed too, the pond in our backyard is pristine. And as Dan pointed out, the whole objective of this thing is to eliminate a cesspool, which I think everyone, right, would agree is what the primary objective here is. Is that right?
That's agreed, and that has its benefit. Just
Yeah.
as you know, I don't mean to get people up when I ask about that little bulge. All you have to say is you don't want to do it. And I could clearly understand. It doesn't,
Okay.
I don't want to get into the bigger picture of all the pluses and whatever else, but I just wanted to make that option out there because it's in that inner buffer very close to wetlands, so it's part of my thing just to at least ask. You don't have to say very much other than no.
That's it. Thank you. No, but thank you very much, Michael, for the offer.
Okay, fine. Okay, let's go back to what we have on the table here, so we can move on.
Before you go, just could you zoom out a little bit so that I could see where the pond is, where that is relative to all this? I'd like to see it. Anyway.
I'd have to, let me switch to the drawing here. So the pond is down here. That grass area that Michael was just talking about is right here. Septic system's up here.
Okay.
Okay.
Kind of a concern or a thought before, I know you want to kind of get this wrapped up and maybe that's fine. There's two pretty high nutrient sources that are very close to wetlands, and that's the chicken coop, obviously, and in a garden, I assume that's fertilized and they're, quite close to the wetlands. I don't know if, and I think any lawn that could be brought back, that would be good too, but I'd say those two high nutrient sources would be some source of concern for wetlands.
True. There existing stuff there, and I, even from talking about the lawn, I will take it as a no to any of those kind of things there, just like the lawn issue, as I see the nodding there. So
Yeah,
let's go back to the deal. Let's go back to just getting the planting numbers solidified and some species, because as was said, that you can come back to us if they with some changes in terms of what the species are based on what you see out there. As long as they're native and match the canopy thing, then you can work with the agent to get approval of that. It does not have to come back before us. So where we are now is that we have essentially we have 6 trees, and we have, let's see, is it the 6 trees here? Yes, we've got the 2 above, the 4 down to the 6 trees, and the 2 service
The river birch too.
Oh, the river birch.
We've got seven trees,
We got 7 trees and
the 2 service berries.
6 to, we have 9, we have 11 shrubs, counting the service berry as shrubs. How do we, and basically what we want is the red maples are good. All the shrub species choices are great. And the issue is to come back, that we want canopy trees for the white spruces are instead, and something that would be more likely to survive.
Right, the white spruces are canopy trees, but they're not native to Massachusetts and they want to be in the northern mountains.
So we just need something we're gonna put,
Swap out, yeah, and it doesn't
So
have
we
to
can
be
just
red maple.
specify that. We can just specify that as a condition. We don't have to have a change
Right.
plan necessarily.
Right,
right,
that's the idea.
we'll do that, and so in the end, and that there'll be that area of restoration, conservation seed mix. That'll be there, that'll be allowed to be mowed twice in the first year, because we really would like to keep that since it's in a lot of it's in the inner buffer. And then maybe once annually. And there's no fertilizer use in that buffer zone.
So isn't that area that he's marked in red, and I don't mean to prolong this, that's gonna be a no, he's gonna let that grow naturally. That's not gonna be that's a non-maintenance area.
Right, that's the question
That's
of allowing
Well,
a maintenance for 1 year or something.
Yeah, there's no, there's no, you're not gonna, you're gonna let it grow wild and
Yeah.
crazy. You're just gonna let it go. You're gonna mow over the septic system, but not that, not the inner buffer, because that's not even mowed now.
Yeah, we don't normally mow a planting like that.
No, and we wouldn't. What I was suggesting that until we get these plantings established, I wouldn't want it to get overrun
what
by
we-
something else in there. So we wanted to
So
try
what
to
we say
mow
is that
that.
we typically just weed around the stems, is what we say.
Okay,
You
all
could do
right, that's
that.
fine.
Just trim around the stems.
Okay, so there's no maintenance in that restoration area. There'll be manual weeding and protection of the 8 shrubs up there. And no fertilizer applications or pesticides, since in the buffer zone. And is that most of the deal? Did I
We were
capture?
gonna move that one wetland marker over.
Oh, yeah, we gotta
closer
move
to
the
the river
wetland
bridge.
marker over by where the let's see, where's the next one down there? It's all the way down there. Okay,
We put one way down here.
yeah, so there would be one by, I'm trying to think of whether, I guess that's not too long a distance.
I think it's fine with the scooched over marker.
Okay, so the one landmark will be around where the inkberry is, or just up above it there.
Sure.
Okay. And I guess just for the applicants, that yes, we try to go over what all the conditions are gonna be during this hearing, so that we're all clear about it, then we have to write it up in the order of conditions. Are there any other conditions? You had said a question?
I
That
don't,
was
oh, go
that was-
ahead.
that was our dog barking, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I saw a puppy in the back. But
Yeah. There's 2 of them, yeah.
You might, the dog, or maybe we could translate the dog. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm so easily distracted by animals.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't have any other conditions besides the standard conditions for a site like this. I mean,
Right. Okay,
the plan looks really good. I mean, this is a excellent planting plan, and as Dan has said, anytime we're getting rid of a cesspool is a public service, so.
I guess
Thank
I'll
you.
ask, yeah, the erosion control that stops just above the service berries. Do you think there'll be a need, given all the grading and everything you're doing there, to run that a little bit further? Further up?
Let me switch to the grading plan. We can check that out real quick.
Oh, yeah, I can look at the, yeah,
Yeah, right? And they're coming in from the driveway, so
I just don't, given all the work there, I just don't want.
I get it.
I
Joyce, what do you think?
I can extend it up to that double tree that we're saving, another
Okay,
couple of feet.
yeah, I just don't want it with all the work there, it would be a shame. To have a problem there, okay. Okay, are there any other conditions or questions or issues? Otherwise, I think this will obviously be an improvement for the wetlands. And,
Just one last question, Dan, where are you stockpiling?
oh, yeah,
We showed a number of areas that we're gonna be stockpiling. For the septic system itself, there's really no separate stockpile area. They're gonna be using what they excavate out here to build these slopes. As they trench across through here, we showed a temporary stockpile berm next to the trench. And we showed it on the upstream side of the trench, so in case there is any erosion, it'll go into the hole. And then we have a couple of small stockpiles right here, temporary areas for when they excavate out for the 2 tanks.
And those are all out of jurisdiction.
right.
They are, look at that.
Yeah, fantastic, right?
You could do whatever you want over there. Uh,
Fun.
Okay, anything else before I close the hearing?
Hey, just one comment for me. Again, this is all new to me and I think I feel good coming out of this thing, but it's kind of like when I take my wife or we go to New York shopping. I feel good about it, but I have no idea what just happened.
Well, there you go. Well, hopefully you don't have to do it too often. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
I feel good about it too, so.
Yes, it's one of those issues that you only live with once or so, and then it's like you're not going to store it.
Dan, I'm going to rely on you as the expert here. Am I in trouble financially on this thing or?
No, I think we're still in the same ballpark that we talked about earlier today.
Okay.
Okay, I
Ladies
will
and
now,
gentlemen, thank you very much.
hold on, okay, we still have a bit of a ritual to go through here.
Do you
Okay,
mind
I will
do you mind if
now-
I jump off?
you can come off. I don't think anything else.
Yeah, this part's boring.
Nothing else will come up.
I don't jump off.
Okay,
Oh. are you-
unless any other commissioners have any other comments before I close the hearing? Okay, I move that we close the hearing on 73 Washington Street, notice of intent for the failed septic or septic replacement. I'll just call it that.
Second,
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney, Steve,
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Okay, hearing is closed. I now move that with the finding that with the conditions discussed and the replacement of a cesspool with a good septic system that's significantly further from some open water, although it's still and outside the 50-foot zone of the adjacent wetlands, that this will not be an adverse impact to the wetland resources. And I'll leave it at that. Do I have a second?
second,
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Okay, so we will write up all of this that we discussed with a bunch of standard conditions about how you have to do things that Dan has seen many times. If you trust that guy,
We do.
so, and you should, that, I guess it gets issued in the next couple of weeks. I don't know when we're gonna get it out. It goes out in a couple of weeks, but we'll also be letting the Board of Health know that what the process here. And then there's also an appeal period. If the neighbor has, oh yeah, I never asked. I did I forgot again, since I actually do see in a butter. I didn't ask if any abutters had any input to this. It's a little late there. Does anybody else from the public have any comment?
Michael, Tom Trainer here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm a direct butter to this beautiful property, and between our two properties, we have 80 acres of Army Corps natural storage. It's just a beautiful area. But I just want to compliment your board and the owners, the Gustafsons, and of course our good friend Dan. Anytime we can get rid of a 70-year-old septic or cesspool, we're miles in terms of improvement with conditions. So glad to see this project moving forward.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, sorry, I didn't get to do that during the hearing. I keep forgetting that I'm supposed to see if anybody, but hopefully people with urgent issues would raise their hand.
Thanks for keeping us in line, Tom.
Yes, okay, so that's it for this one. We can now move on.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
Dan.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Do we have an expected timeline when this can get to Ellen so we can start the Board of Health process?
No. Hopefully we can get it. Well, it depends on how quickly things get signed. Because we're still
Okay.
remote.
You hear
So
that,
if we were sitting
everybody?
around a table,
Oh, yeah, we can
so
sign.
we'll
Sign quick.
I'll
All
be
right.
there. As soon as you put the papers out, I'll be there.
hopefully
I'm
next
not-
week, Dan.
Thank you.
we'll find 4 people around to do that. Okay, we've done that. Now, before we get to discussions that I can't tell if we've lost. I guess we lost the 2 people on the other thing.
No, no, they're still here.
Oh, okay, good. But before we get to that, I just want to open and continue the other 2 hearings, and then we can go right into the discussions. What do we have for timing? What do we have, what's scheduled for the next meeting on August?
At 7:20 next week, we have next meeting, we have a request for determination of applicability.
How much
And
time do you
then
think
that's-
we need for that one? Have you seen it enough?
I would say 20 minutes.
Oh, so it's an easy one. Okay. So we can do 7:45. We could try the reg thing again, and then oh yeah, so the continued hearing for 60 Washington Street, they want to continue to the next meeting? Is that your sense?
I would continue to last.
Oh,
So,
Okay. well, I might just do the hearing, the regs one at 7:45 and do Washington Street at 8 o'clock, and then we could always take a break for the Washington Street one and continue the regs if we get something going there. Okay. I am now reopening the continued public hearing on the Sherborn wetland regulations and discussion of possible amendments to those regulations. Given other issues and waiting for some more material, I would like to move to continue this hearing until 7:45 on August 3rd. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Okay. Now I will now reopen the continued public hearing for the request for determination of applicability for 16 Washington Street for some replacement of some restoration of some buffer zone. And that the applicant has requested that we continue it to the next meeting. So I have opened it, and now I am now moving to continue this hearing until 8 PM on August 3rd. Do I have a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Okay, fine. Now we can go to discussions. And let's complete before we get to the 40B, which is the last thing, and we have some minutes. Let's get to the 11 Harrington Ridge Certificate of Compliance. If I don't see them, I don't see them here. Am I mistaken?
I don't see them either. Perhaps we could just send them an email.
Right, I think you could send an email. I guess you sent an email out that's hopefully explain things that.
Well, I had been communicating with Rob. I'm sorry, there's like an epic space battle happening back there, if you can't hear me.
We don't hear it though.
Good. It just makes it a little hard to talk. I had been communicating with him, but I can include everybody and just make sure we're all on the same page.
I think now, given that that's happened to us before, where sometimes the consultant does not always pass everything on, so or this.
I mean, I don't know.
Why don't we just on all of this?
Well, I
given-
think their main question was, do they need to come back? I mean, so like, we technically could, issue, no, I mean, they should be there
Technically,
for questions, right? It's
Well, I mean, technically, they're going to submit it, and it's going to get reviewed. And if there are any questions, the questions can be asked ahead
Right.
of the meeting or outside the meeting. They
okay.
don't necessarily have to come back.
I didn't think so, and so it's up to them, and I can just tell them that's their option.
I mean, there is that issue of the survivability of things like that, since they're adding things, but, but, okay, why don't you just, let's, for the sake of this, since we're running late, let's send them an email and make sure that the lawyer and the former owner, and everybody gets it, so everybody's on the same page.
Okay,
Let's not do anything more there. Okay, let's moving on. In terms of site issues, did you have any other site issues? Joyce?
No, I did not.
Okay, running through this in some order. Administrative approvals are all of the five.
So, there's two I'm still working with on that list. One is 100 Maple Street. I'm meeting out on site with them on Tuesday. They were doing some buffer zone cleanup. I'm just trying to find out what it is. They're filing an AA.
Okay,
That's 100 Maple Street. And then 1 Pleasant Street, I'm going out there also. So those two, the rest of them are.
okay, so for the record, 28 Lake Street for soil testing is outside of jurisdiction, 223 South Main for a deck is out of jurisdiction. And 3 Nason Hill Lane septic design revised home is also out of jurisdiction. Is that not true?
yeah, I was just double checking. I was like, I know I did one of these. Yes.
Okay, so 3 of them are out of jurisdiction and the other 2 are still in process. Okay, then moving on, we have the 40B projects and we have some minutes. I would like to let's see, on the 40B project, we had to explain, let's see, I'll just start with the 40B. For those new folks here, for Kurt and Steve, essentially a 40B project. I don't know whether you, Kurt, know as well as I don't know how much you do any of that. But essentially the application for a permit, the equivalent to like it comes from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And what happens with an affordable housing project is that any of our local regulatory issues on the local bylaw for wetlands, any concerns we have that are tied to our local bylaw versus the state Wetlands Protection Act, those have to be addressed through this ZBA process for a comprehensive permit. And so we have to raise any concerns we have that arise from our bylaw versus the state law, because in parallel or sequentially, I guess it's been a little tricky. They do have to file a notice of some sort of permit under the State Wetland Protection Act related to a 40B project, depending on what's appropriate. And then we can only adjudicate it based on the State Wetland Protection Act, none of the extra features that exist in our in our bylaw and our local regs can be taken into account with a 40B project. But we can raise issues that are at that level during the ZBA process. Now, the 2 40B projects that are listed on the agenda, Coolidge Street Homes is at a very initial phase where they've just applied to what's called the Mass Housing Partnership. And at this stage, they just asked for general comments. Most of our concerns for a project do not really have any impact at this initial phase. Although we tend to write a letter that just notes issues that we have of concern, even though they wouldn't, that they won't get factored in. For example, that I'm going to start with that one, because we have to get out if we're going to write any comments on there. Let's see, 40 Coolidge Street Homes. I'm gonna just, let's see, why isn't it showing up? Okay. I'm gonna share my screen and just bring up the issues here. Let's see. Okay. I guess I'm gonna make it a little smaller here. Okay. I'm gonna now share. Uh, Okay, this is the project. Oops, you guys seeing it on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, just to get you a little oriented here. Now you can see this is Coolidge Street, the farm with all the outdoor stuff is right across the street from this. And it's not far before, close to when you get to Speen Street. So there's the big entryway. They have these 12 units. There is an isolated vegetated wetland in the back here. There is a and they have a septic system here, and they're putting 3 wells in the inner buffer zone. Now, under our bylaw, there is a buffer zone around an isolated vegetated wetland. But under the state, there isn't, for example. But at this point, so at some point in the future, when this goes before the ZBA, then we can raise some comments about what we would have under the bylaw. Just so you know, the developer has also discussed the fact that they're hoping to possibly get water and sewer from the connection that might be made via Framingham for the bigger projects that are around this property. Behind here is a large property that would be an elderly housing, and then there's a big 40B project about maybe 500 feet down to the south of here. In which case these things would disappear, and there would be no impacts from what on the wetlands unless they change the plan dramatically and want to do something. But for the sake of expediency, where we're just trying to make comments, what historically we brought up is the fact that there's possibly going to be, we don't see the grading here. So in terms of our concern, we have some concern about the wetlands being protected because there might be significant grading that we don't know about. There is a septic field in the buffer zone, and the effluent from that can contaminate the wetlands. And then there is a matter of carefully doing the wells, as well as there's sometimes we have raised a concern of whether the drawdown of wells, if they're large size like this one is, these are each going to be serving a significant number of bedrooms, whether there could be any connection between the overburdened groundwater levels that basically feed this wetland, and the bedrock wells that bedrock groundwater that they are drilling into. So we have, in the past, on projects similar to this, we have just raised those kind of concerns. That they're not the ones that, as we hear from the site walk, are ones that Mass Housing Partnership will figure in on their assessment at this level. But I would suggest that we can just write a one-page letter that just literally lists the issues as I just said them. I don't know of any, so that would be an example. We can raise those issues in much more detail if this proceeds forward and goes to the ZBA with a comprehensive permit. In which case we would spend a bit more time trying to figure out what might be the impacts, and they would have to decide whether those wetland impacts are significant enough or potential adverse impacts are sufficient enough to overcome the need for affordable housing. And to some extent, it's often hard to make the case. In this case, might be a little even more difficult because it's part of an isolated vegetated wetland and not a larger, more complex wetland to be concerned about. I will stop there on this one because we do have to see if you agree with the points that I made and whether we would have a motion for let's say Courtney, me, and Joyce to write a letter on behalf of the commission, just listing those points to send to the select board for inclusion in their letter to Mass Housing. I will stop there and ask for any comments from anybody on the board, and then maybe the public. I don't see everybody on my screen, so speak up.
Hey, Michael, this is Kurt. Yeah, no, I think the points you raise are good, and I would support you and Courtney and Joyce writing a letter to Mass Housing.
Okay.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, so at the septic. Flow. We have the water supply. Can't remember what my other, was it just those really, the grading issues. We don't know what the grading is. Did I have a fourth point? Without having to listen to the minutes, I should have been writing them down. I don't think they're increasing the amount of lawn. Okay, so maybe it's just that.
Do you
Okay.
want, do you want to mention the isolated wetland, Michael, or is it really so insignificant?
No, it is, that is the issue, but we'll just note that it is a wetland. That's not an issue at this point. Okay. I move that the commission submits a comment letter with the issues noted. That will be written by Courtney, Michael, and Joyce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call
Thank-
vote.
Did you say-
Oh, yeah, roll call vote. Michael, I, Steve? I think I heard an I. Kurt?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Okay. Now, going back to now this other project on Farm Road is now, I'm going to just show this for a second here. This project is further along. They've made an application to the ZBA. So, and the ZBA is starting on August 1st, is starting their hearing process, for which they will decide whether to grant a comprehensive permit or not. And if they grant a permit, what would be the conditions that are part of the permit? Part of the application for everybody to know about is that since the ZBA is representing in this 40B hearing, the ZBA is our representative for any other local board in terms of their local issues, either regulations or other kind of concerns. And what happens is that part of the application is a negotiation in a way. They submit a list of waivers from all of the local regulations that the ZBA has to consider whether they will grant these waivers. They could often be for setbacks and such. As you can see here, they have gone through here. I think there are about 4 pages of waivers here. This is related to the rules of the comprehensive permit there, that they're even I don't spend a lot of time on this, but they're asking for waivers for some time limit stuff. Then they go into waivers from the zoning bylaw. Sometimes they go for setback differences here. Then that goes on. Then there are dimensional requirements to ask for waivers for. So there's a whole long list which is available online. And then they ask for waivers from the general laws of the town of Sherborn, which then here have things like the wetlands bylaw. Here we have there. Okay, a waiver is sought for basically everything at the local level here. Again, so waivers from the groundwater protection. Now, we don't know what things would trigger here, but obviously we have a buffer zone for an isolated wetland, which the state does not have, so they're asking for a waiver from that. And there's even some waivers, I guess, for the storm water bylaw. And then they go for waivers from the planning board and the Board of Health. And then what I found interesting is that there's all the waivers, the Board of Health, and then they have the wetland regulations. I guess the other was maybe the bylaw. I forgot to look up what section 5.4 is. But they're looking for a waiver that there's nothing beyond the state. It's our job, if there was something of particularly important from a wetland perspective that we protect at the local level, that we would have to make our argument to the ZBA to not give a whole waiver. And then there would have to be specific conditions that we would be asked for. Like in the past on like on the first project for Coolidge, we've sometimes even asked for if you're gonna put a septic system right next to a wetland, and they say that they're not gonna push them to put it out, that they can't overcome it, there's no alternative. We once asked for a condition where we could go on site and test the wetlands for possible contamination from effluent from the septic system, which we've asked for in the past, so that we can come up with specific conditions that might help with wetland protection that the ZBA might grant. It's somewhat of a negotiation also with the applicant, because the applicant could also appeal. If a permit is granted with a lot of conditions, sometimes I think they can appeal individual conditions there. But this is what it looks like. And so this has all been put on the table there. We have to think about for this project what our so we have to prepare, in a sense, what our issues are. I can tell this is the best page, maybe. It's a little harder to read, although I think this is existing conditions. Forgot to, I think it's maybe just the first. What we need to prepare for the I can tell which is the best one to look at for just an overview, but maybe the first one is, I forgot. Oh, here we go. This is an example of the whole project. And there are wetlands on the left side, and there's another isolated vegetated wetland here, and a land subject to flooding on the east side here. Which actually, I guess this is almost sort of north-south. Oh yeah, you can see it up here. This one here, there are concerns about the fact that there's a road that's in a buffer zone here. To this here, this is the wetland here. So we have buffer zone and there's a road that's going through it. That we have some concern, and there's some of the houses, back of the houses are in the outer buffer zone. I think the solid line is the no alteration inner buffer zone, even though this is a 40B and doesn't have to follow our rules. They have basically tried to keep everything out of the 50-foot no alteration zone. Except for maybe a well. I can't tell if they move the wells. Those are tend to be more temporary disturbances. And it looks like on this side here, they've kept everything outside of the buffer zone, except they have a very large septic system that is just perched on the edge of the buffer zone, so we can have effluent considerations that the best we can do is probably just try to monitor that. When it's out of the buffer zone, last time we appealed that ourselves, we were told that unfortunately, since it's, even if the effluent is going in here and it's clear, that's clear how the hydrology will be, that we have to wait till there's actual damage. You cannot, by that time, it's almost impossible to do anything about it, so it's a little bit tricky concern here. But we can raise those concerns at the ZBA hearing. The issue is that the permitting that they're gonna have to give for us is, we have yet to see what permit they would come and request for us under the state rules. Whether they will, it'll be a subject of discussion to see whether because even though they have area in the buffer zone here, project stuff here, the state, I can't tell. Is this BVW even, is this considered BVW, Joyce, possibly? In this area here, even though it's related to an isolated wetland?
Well,
Well,
lake.
it's the buffer zone to an, you mean the buffer zone to an isolated wetland?
No, I'm talking about this area. This is what this has been. Where
No,
the
it's still isolated. It's all isolated. Not connected to anything
Right.
behind it.
So there's no buffer at the state. They could argue that they're not doing anything in jurisdiction for the State Wetland Protection Act, for keeping out of this or that, but I think we have to look at that more closely.
But if you'll note, they are observing the 50-foot around there. I mean, pretty nicely.
Oh, yeah, no, they're doing that. It's just a matter of what permitting would be.
That's good.
At the state.
I have a
But-
question.
Sure.
Looks to me like they might be putting fill within the 50-foot buffer zone.
Oh, yeah.
Around the pond. So they'll be filling in that. Is that
So
right?
this plan seems to show their fill outside the 50.
Well, there's some
They've
fill
got
right
their
here.
erosion control barrier.
There's some fill here.
Yeah, a
and
little bit. You're right.
a little bit of fill over here by the septic. But right, it's an interesting issue to see how this works out. But that's the NOI at the, that would be the permitting at the state level. At the ZBA level that's starting up, we have to think about, at our next meeting, we'll try to prepare something to think about what concerns we have about this project that may be in conditions that we want the ZBA to consider putting in at the local level. And that's something that we're not going to do tonight. I just wanted to introduce this, that at our next meeting, stick that on the agenda as a discussion item to see what concerns we want to raise at the ZBA level.
And
We
one
could-
other question, if I
Yeah.
may. I see that the water line in April 28th, 2021, with that pond, as we all know, can get really big, and I don't know with certainly with climate change, but has it gotten bigger than that, Joyce? Do you know if in 2022 and 2023 whether that line was farther out?
So the line we fixed with soils, and soils are very slow to change. So as far as the water line goes, the water line, you'll see we got two different elevations there. I think the top elevation most closely matched bank full, I guess if you would want to call it. Bank full only refers to streams, but for the pond, that full spot And then on April 22, that's the line they observed. If you recall, we had a really dry year.
So why were those 2 years, those two time periods chosen? As
Maybe
opposed to
that
having,
just happened to be their point of observation. You know, they did the topography. That's when they were on the site project.
Well, we have photos of the recent, when it was extremely wet. And we could try to look at what that water line would have been or is based on when there was a recent significant bit of precipitation back a month or two ago. There are pictures and we can try to figure out what that water line would be here. That issue then comes up with for sort of stormwater management, really, and that's part of where I think it's going to be what's going to be part of the ZBA process will be doing the stormwater management review, which falls under what's called the DPA standards. There are 9 standards that they have to go through. And so in that process there, which we will be participating in, is to see whether whether their work, they have a catch basin here, to what extent any of their work curtails the water storage capacity for dealing with stormwater. And that'll be a major concern, really, to get straight that this project is not that it adequately maintains the water on site and does not lead, let's say, to some problem of flooding, let's say, of Washington, of Farm Road or something like that. But that'll be part of the stormwater standards that will be done under the ZBA, where they hire there'll be a consultant, they'll file a 1 inch or 2 thick stormwater management plan, and there'll be a peer reviewer consultant hired by the ZBA who will carefully go over that, and we can participate in that review there. We can also make sure that what's that?
Sorry, can you pan to the left a little bit? Pan, yes, that way. Yep, keep going. So they've also connected that into the buffer zone with the stormwater. So they will be filing something with us.
Oh, where were you looking at? Looking at the here?
Right there.
That's not an
Go
isolated.
down. Yeah, go down below, right? Keep going right there. They've connected that stormwater system.
That's under the other building. That's not under this project. That's under.
No, look, right where your pipe is, the pipe that comes across the front.
Oh, this is a pipe. They're bringing from here. Oh, they're running
Yep.
something here. Wow. Okay.
There's pipe easement there, I think.
I see a pipe easement.
Drainage
There
easement.
was one because there was this whole debate about whether there's a water course or there. I
And I
didn't
think-
realize that is something that I hadn't noticed before. So that clearly, right. That's I don't know what they've negotiated with the property here. Whether they've got
Well,
it
they've got a drainage easement. They've got a stormwater easement, but it's
Yeah.
also a point source discharge. So
right over here.
aside from the fact that there's work there, there's also a point source discharge.
Right, exactly, because that was an issue here, it comes right here. Okay, so we have an issue to deal with. If this holds up.
And on that side, it's a bordering vegetated wetland, right?
Oh, yeah, this is right.
Correct.
Yep, as you say, that would require a state level filing. If they're going to keep that. Okay. So we're gonna have to talk about these issues and start making comments. Prepare comments for the ZBA process. As well as get some of to the extent that we need some consulting help, part of the peer review would be to have a line to sort of help to get some supporting help from the peer reviewer to review whatever application they submit to us for the notice of, for whatever they file for us. Okay, so this will be, yes. go
Michael, I apologize, Tom Trainer.
Sure.
Are you taking any public comment at any time?
on. Oh, yeah, sure. No, by all means, since I can't see everybody.
Can I point something out? If you go back to the pond end of the plan, actually answer Steve's question, sizes. I think most people are familiar with this property just driving down Farm Road. But do you see the current road or the planned road?
Yeah, this one here.
Right, that's got actually about 20 or 30 yards east of the existing cart path.
Right, exactly, which is all the way
Yeah.
over, right.
Right. And I believe I've seen, and I've have to dig them out again, but I thought I saw aerial photos from a year reviewed a year ago when this first came up, the first round of things to mass housing, where this pond, which is a little mini kettle pond that as you see from these two dates, has a big range in coverage and depth and diameter, that pond reached the cart path at one point, 30, 40 years ago, and
Right.
particularly
Right.
wet years. So that's actually a question that's leading to a question to your board. Given the given just the current wetland flagging and it being a pond, what extra concerns or protections do you have? And then given that it has ranged in the past in size that much, you're starting to see ponding at some of those houses.
Well,
do you have to? You
I'll
have
just say that issue, I mean, you see the grading that they're putting in here. That's grading the road up to about 220.
Oh, they're adding elevation.
So they're basically building up to 220. And if you look over here where some of the existing stuff is, where maybe the current, can't quite see the outline of the current path, but these are things that are around 217, 218. What's this existing one here? I can't tell. That's a 220. So that I think, and that's a grading. So that I think they're basically protecting the road by creating this this berm, so to speak. But that will basically be crimping the stormwater, the flood management capacity. And that's what's going to happen. That's where that issue, I think, will have to come up, is by curtailing the flow of water that might have gone here at some sort of large, who knows, 50, 100-year event.
Yep.
That that it might not flood the road, but where's all that water going to go? That would previously possibly flood in this area here. To what extent? Because this is 217 down here, and 218, that they're basically, water would start flowing rather than this way, it might go the other way.
It actually does go to the right to the other property too. Well, thanks for pointing that out about the.
Yeah, I mean, I did, when there was a tremendous amount of water recently, and this was much larger, there was no connection actually between here and to the east. I went walking through there on the conservation land there. There was lots of flooding off to the east, but there was no actual connection from here to there. They don't have the topo lines here, but there was enough. I mean, the water went quite far out here, but there was no connection going east. But that was, I can't remember what that storm was like. Whatever it is, this flood storage capacity is going to be a big issue, I think. and what modeling they use, what they use for a 50 or 100-year storm, whatever that I think DEP is final. I don't know what, unfortunately, this project permitting and the stormwater DEP standards will probably be done under current definitions of what the 50 or 100-year storm are. And those are, I think, those are in the midst of being changed.
They are the new state RMAT. The 100-year is
Is it out?
I don't think it's out officially, but
All right.
the current 100-year 24-hour is 8 inches, and the proposed is 11 inches, and that
The problem is
that
this
is-
project, the problem is that this project's probably gonna be judged under the existing and not the new ones.
yeah.
And that's one of the issues we just have to raise, to what extent that that in the ZBA process and conditioning, can we get this, can we have this designed for what might be more likely, the more severe events? And I don't know, and that's probably a negotiation to some extent. But I think that will be part of that process. Okay,
Good, thank you.
so we're gonna have to talk about this at our next meeting further. So look at this stuff here. There's a lot of files on the town website. In our June 20th, I'll move it all over. There's this July 20th, there's this thing here where I just moved over some of the more relevant stuff for us.
Michael, there's one more hand up.
Oh, good. Well, I can't see it.
Yeah, Michael, it's Sue McPherson. On that map that you had, the one thing I would just like to point out, and you may have said this when I had to step away, but on the lower right-hand side of the map where it had the little parking easement, it
Oh.
looks to be that is in the wetland buffer as well. So I'm not sure if that's something that the commission would want to address.
Oh, talking.
And
some
you have to go
down here.
through the scenic historic farm stone wall to get to that as well.
No, Michael, it's a little square see the buffer zone around the pond? Zoom in around- yeah, it's a little square there. It's an easement. I don't know that they're actually building anything there.
Oh, yeah, this is the easement.
Well, in the very beginning, on the deed when he filed this, he's granting a parking area for access.
Oh, really? Oh, here, okay.
Yes.
That'll be, we'll have to bring that up at the ZBA in our
Yeah,
hearing,
thought.
since this won't fall under the state. This is not a state level area.
But it impacts not only the wetland buffer, but also, I think there's some trees there as well as the stone wall.
Oh, yeah, no, we could raise it, but I'm just saying that would have to be, the ZBA would have to accept that kind of issue, because we can't do it under the state filing, given that there's no buffer zone around this kind of resource area.
Got it. Okay.
So, but at the state level, we have it at the local. But no, that's a good point. So whatever, we'll have to add these things. Hopefully be here at our next meeting when we do this, and maybe we'll have to pick a time for it so people know. Although given some of the way hearings get continued and not, we'll see what we can do. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else who want to make a comment before I think I end this there? And I'll just end with the fact that we probably at the first ZBA meeting, if people want to attend, don't worry about whether there's a quorum, since we're not going to have much discussion. That will be the issue of going out for peer review and just making sure that we get a line in the scope of work to give us whatever assistance we might need in reviewing whatever application comes in. Will probably be one of the first issues. We just have to make sure. And who knows whether it'll come up at that time, whether they're going to have an argument about whether they even have to file. But given the issues, so given what we talked about tonight, seems like there's some reasons that they would still have to file under the state. Okay. Did a lot of talking. Anybody have any questions or anything more they want to ask about this? Okay. Thank you, everybody. And then the last thing we have to do is go over 2 sets of minutes, I think, as part of our catch-up. And let's see, because I think that's it. Washington. I guess there is a warrant. Oops. Let's cover that quickly here. This was for, what was this for?
That is for the plaque signs. We
Oh,
only have about 4 remaining.
these are the wetland markers that we
Yeah.
asked to use. Okay, thank you. How many of those? What are they? Okay.
Yeah, we get about 30.
Oh, so they're $10, around $10 each.
Mhm.
Okay. Now let's do our minutes here. People will have to dig back in the past. Okay, everybody, here's that exciting period of the meeting where you guys have to read through this thing. I've gone through it.
That's too small.
Too small, okay. Where is the, oh, there it is. How's that looking?
I can see it. I don't know if everybody else is okay.
Steve, Kurt, can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Fine. I need you guys to read through and tell me when the 3 of you are done. I need to hear a little move on.
You can move on.
Yep.
Courtney?
Keep going.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a typo that Word has highlighted at the end.
Oh, yeah, I didn't go look at the documents part. Walk. Comments? What was that supposed to be?
I'm gonna say comments.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. I move that we approve the February 2nd, 2023 minutes as edited here.
Second.
Yeah,
Any
there we
further
go.
discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
Hi.
Steve,
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, let me, sorry, you're gonna have to persevere for 1 second. I'm gonna save this file as from meeting. Just gonna word there. Okay. Get rid of that. Now the next minutes. Okay, there we go. How's that size?
Good.
Oops, March 9th.
Good.
Okay.
Oops.
I think okay for me.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I move to approve the March 9th, 2023 minutes as edited.
Second.
Second.
Okay, and okay, any further discussion? And hearing none, roll call vote. Michael, I. Courtney,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we got these things done here. Inch by inch on all of that. And it's very slow. Let's see, anything else, Joyce, that you, wow,
No?
looking at the agenda. Announcements, warrant, what he did. Okay. Site issues, administrative, we're done. Okay, I move that we adjourn. Oh, that's much. Ninth.
Second, don't everybody second at once.
Okay, move to adjourn at 9:13. And any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I. Steve,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.